called gathering the chi. So gathering the chi is, like I said, it's mothering, helping them to feel safe, settled. They've had that energy scatter them. We want to get them feeling calm, their spirit back in their body. We want to benefit the earth element. Why? Because the earth is the center. The earth is your centering. It's the mother, Mother Earth. So we want to get someone connected to Mother Earth, stabilize their shen, and we want to help to regulate the blood, because when the energy goes in all directions, so does the blood. Why are we so interested in the blood? Because remember, the blood holds the shen. The spirit is in the blood. So if this blood is going chaotic, so is the spirit. We want to help to regulate the blood. So there's a protocol. And this is a protocol that I found very effective. And it's utilizing Yin Tang MHN3, Neiguan, pericardium 6, Zhongwan, Ren 12, and Song Yin Jiao, spleen 6. I found this protocol to be very effective when people had gone through car accidents, a recent grief, like a loss. And I started doing this to first get them settled. But what I found is people who had a trauma 20 years ago that was still kind of in their field and still being affecting them, I found this helped to get them settled and centered so they can then begin to process that trauma. Because the idea is, her question was really about how do you get someone to get out of their identity of that trauma? You have to have them feel their own stable in the center. It's their stable energy, their self-love, to be able to process that trauma. Otherwise, they're just kind of running on that fight or flight response to try to just get through the day. But once they feel settled, they can begin processing, just like you saw those pictures earlier of patients who, first came in scattered, but then they started to go through the trauma and then to come out the other side. But why these points specifically? So Yin Tang, this is located, as we know, up here, the third eye area. That's also known as the seat of the stamp. What does that mean? So in China, at least in classical China, they have these chops, these stamps. You guys have seen them on calligraphy, on seals. They're these seals that would be, red ink. You guys have seen this, a chop. Well, the higher up you were on the hierarchy of the political spectrum, the bigger your chop. So the emperor had this gigantic chop, and that was stored in the Hall of Seals, because it's a seal, right? You seal an envelope with this. Where it was in the palace was in a building, in a room, where you could see out over the whole city. And it's a metaphor for the emperor is able to see, he could see all of the kingdom, all of the people, the whole perspective, to see the forest through the trees. And so when we use this point, we're helping someone to get into that clear perception so they can see the forest through the trees. They're able to step outside of their drama, out of their trauma, and see another way, see the bigger picture. So like her question, how does someone make that change? Number one, open the third eye. So we know that this Yin Tang calms the spirit. That's one of the functions of it. In terms of Western medicine, this stimulates the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex. We talked about that earlier. So there's studies in China. So like I said, I like using research-based studies because they've done studies now where they stimulate Yin Tang and they do a brain scan and they see the prefrontal cortex light up. Why is that important? Because when the prefrontal cortex is activated, it's communicating with the limbic system, so then it checks that whole pattern, and then that way the body doesn't go out of control into that state of being in that panic state. It's also in the facial diagnostic, Lillian Bridges facial diagnostic. It's located in the liver area. So why is that interesting? Because the liver regulates the blood. Remember, the liver is the general. She decides what's going to happen. She strategizes. Remember, the liver's function is to look at all the possible options and then send the blood where it needs to go in the right timing. And so by doing this, it helps the Hun to act properly, to make those choices, to make the right decisions for the blood is going to go in the body, so things, the spirit and the blood, become more harmonized. So that's Yin Tang.